Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the Nine Nations Commercial Nerve Center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Here's what's coming up on the program right now. After almost 2 weeks in captivity, Edo State Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Tony Azegbemi, regains freedom from his abductors. Was Celestine ever the governor of Rivers State in the eyes of the law? The verdict of the Rivers State High Court says he was never a governor. And one of the detained executives of cryptocurrency exchange platform Binance escapes lawful custody. Federal government activates operation for his rearrest. Thanks again for joining us on the program. We are beginning with the report just in that the controversy over whether or not Chief Celestine was ever a governor of Rivers State has now been brought to rest as Justice Dekani Kyo of the Rivers State High Court says he was never a governor in the eyes of the law. In his judgment, Justice Kip says he's not entitled to a pension as a former governor, and the defendant cannot demand a refund of 694 million naira as pension and fringe benefits. The court adds that it can't depart from the Supreme Court judgment in the case of Rotimi Amechi versus INEC and two others. Recall that after the tenure of former Governor Peter Odili, Chief Celestine was elected and sworn in as governor of Rivers State in May 29, 2007. Dissatisfied with the outcome, former Governor Rotimi Amechi headed to the court to challenge the primaries that brought in Umeya. After a legal battle, the court ruled that Amechi was indeed the validly elected candidate of the PDP, and because people vote for parties, not candidates, he was then declared governor, and Mr. Celestine was never recognized by that administration as a former governor. But during the tenure of Governor Nyesom Wike, the House of Assembly enacted a law recognizing Umeya as governor. In October 2022, however, the governor withdrew the recognition accorded to Mr. Umeya and demanded that he refund all pensions earned. Mr. Umeya approached the court demanding that he be recognized as a former governor of the state, which has now been interpreted by the law that he was never a governor. We'll definitely bring more on that in the course of the program, that development in Rivers State. But let's tell you that the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Edo State, Anthony Azegbemi, is now back with his family after regaining freedom from his abductors. He was freed in the early hours of today, having spent about 11 days in captivity. The special advisor, media project to the Edo State Governor, Crusoe Osagie, confirmed the development to Channels Television in a telephone interview. The Edo State PDP chairman was abducted on Friday, March the 15th, close to his house. That's along the in Benin City, the Edo State capital, on his way back from a meeting with Governor Godwin Obaseki at the government house. In the meantime, it appears the embattled national chairman of the Labour Party, Mr. Julius Abure, is not out of the woods over his leadership challenge, with calls now that he resigns his position, as well as the resignation of the Nigeria Labour Congress President, Mr. Joe Ajero, has also been called. The veterans, led by former Vice President of the NLC, Mr. Issa Tijani, made the demand at the media briefing in Abuja. Mr. Tijani explains that the allegation of fraud against Mr. Abure was dented or has dented the image of the party, while it is wrong for Mr. Ajero to picket the party secretariat.
What of this guy? They can move. Legion of Labour Veterans is immediately, intimately familiar with the damning records of financial sleaze said to have been flagrantly perpetrated by the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, an inveterate money monger of no mean repute. We strongly believe that his trial and subsequent conviction will serve as a deterrent to aspiring young politicians, particularly those from trade union background. In this connection, our good members are hereby strongly reaffirming their cardinal demand that Abure must go. There is no reason for the Nigerian Labour Congress to go and picket the Labour Party. There's absolutely no reason. That's why Ajero has committed a crime. Abure has also committed a crime. You cannot picket somebody from your house. The Labour Party is part of Nigerian Labour Congress. Labour Congress is part of Labour Party. So who are you picketing to? What's the psychology of the picketing? Do you understand what I mean? What would you tell people? How are people seeing us now in the face of the public? That we are a divided house against each other and we want to use all means. No, no. We are not in support of the picketing.
Now, as parties, should move on to other story, by the way. Let's bring you some security stories. Now, the federal government, via the Office of the National Security Advisor, has activated operations to ensure the rearrest of the executive of Binance, Mr. Nadeem Anjarwalla, in the ongoing criminal probe into activities of cryptocurrency exchange platform Binance in Nigeria, after a 4-count charge of tax evasion was filed against the company. The Minister of Information, Mr. Mohammed Idris, and the Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Zak Adediji, both briefed State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting that efforts are on to ensure he's apprehended and he faces the full wrath of the law.
There is now a widespread manhunt on him. The Interpol has also been contacted, and government is optimistic that this individual will be brought to book very soon. And those who were charged with the responsibility of keeping him in custody have also been arrested, and they have been questioned. And as more information as regards that is available, it will be made available to Nigerians.
While the retired Assistant Director of the Department of State Services and Security Consultant, Mr. Dennis Amakri, questions why the Office of the National Security Advisor was chosen for the detention of Mr. Anjarwalla and not the facility of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission or the DSS, was guest on our political program, Politics Today.
He should have been watch-listed. You know, in fact, he would have been taken into custody right from when he entered the country. You know, but he came in with a different passport, and then, of course, he was taken to court, and then, of course, he was taken again to a detention center. You know, I don't know the NSA as, you know, whether they have a detention facility. You know, the NSA is an advisory body to the president. So we feel that if he felt that that suspect should be remanded, he should have sent him either to the EFCC, his former place, or send it to the DSS to keep until the date of the court. I can tell you right now, without even seeing the man, that he has rubbed hands with some security agents who allowed him. I'm happy that they've arrested some of them and let them interrogate them. They should tell us exactly what happened and how much he gave to them to let him go. For them now to even allow him to go and pray, I think there are a lot of loopholes and lapses there. Because if he wants to pray, we have held heads of state in detention, and they pray where they eat and live and sleep. So I don't see why this particular guy will be allowed to go to the nearest mosque to go and pray, and from there disappears. And then he went through the airport, and the airport does not have him on their watch list. That is strange, because immediately he was arrested, He should have been fingerprinted and then, of course, put his picture and passports, number, everything to all the land, sea, and air borders.
When it comes to this issue of the escape of the Binance executive, it reeks of a lot of things. All the experts we've spoken to just kind of on the same page that clearly there was complicity somewhere. We're going to explore that conversation sometime later on the show. But for now, let's go back to our lead story, one of our lead stories where we talked about the courts deciding in Rivers State that Celestine Omeya was never a former governor of Rivers State in the eyes of the law, even though he served about 6 months after the tenure of former Governor Peter Odili. We're being joined on the program. Our correspondent who was in that courtroom, Charles Operon, joins us from Port Harcourt. Charles, good to see you.
Hi, Jeff. Good afternoon. Good to see you too.
Let's get straight to it. You were in the courtroom, and was this case not dead on arrival, given some precedents we've seen? What did you see? What did you hear? Was Omeya in the room?
Okay, so first off, we just finished. I am standing in front of the court. Yeah, the court is right behind me. It's a state high court, the high court, the River State Division of the high court, and of course, it was the court of Honorable Justice Taketima Kyo. The judgment took a little under 3 hours to read. It's a 97-page judgment. It started at about 9:30 a.m. thereabouts and ended just before 12 p.m. Now, there were three major things that were decided, right? The first one was, of course, that despite the fact that Sir Celestine Omeya served as governor between May and October of 2007, the judge here, resolved the matter because, of course, the case was that the state government had recognized Celestine Omeya as a governor and then de-recognized him as for an instrument of the River State House of Assembly. Indeed, the motion was actually moved by Martin Amiwule when he was the leader of the House, and now he's the Speaker of the House. So the judge issued three things. The first point of the judgment was that Sir Celestine Omeya was never a governor of River State, and as such, does not qualify to enjoy the benefits and pensions accruable to past governors of the state. The second one, of course, was because the state government had demanded that he refund a little over 696 million naira that were paid to him as a former governor, as for pensions and other fringe benefits. The judge here, the court held that that was not only impracticable, but tantamount to an impossibility, and said that if the state government, wants to get their money back from Celestine Omeya, they had to institute a case that is different from the one that was brought by the claimant, Sir Celestine Omeya. And then, of course, the third one was the court held that it would stand by the Supreme Court judgment of October 2007, which enthroned Rotimi Amechi as governor and held that Sir Celestine Omeya was not a governor and as such cannot benefit from the proceeds of illegality. So that's basically a summary of what transpired in the court earlier today. Yes.
Charles, did the court also speak? Because we've seen this scenario play out even in Bayelsa and some other places where this kind of things have happened. Did the court make any statement concerning decisions and approvals made under that government of Celestine Omeya, since it never existed in the eyes of the law?
So while the Honorable Justice Kyo was reading out his judgment, he did make reference to some of the evidence brought by both the claimant and the defense counsel. Part of them include letters written by the former governor of the state, Nyesom Wike, in which he referred to Sir Celestine Omeya as His Excellency, right? And then some of the evidence presented include that Sir Celestine Omeya had carried out actions as a governor, including proclaiming the House of Assembly, applying for a loan, and of course signing of executive documents in his capacity as a governor at the time. The court didn't go into the legality of the actions he carried out, because I believe that has been handled before by the Supreme Court, which states that after you serve, if someone serves as a governor and is removed by a judicial process, the actions carried out by that individual are deemed to have been legal, right? So the court did not make any reference to that. However, the court made a reference to the claim of costs of court for about 25 million and threw that out and said, no, nobody is going to receive any cost of court. 25 million naira is hereby thrown out. So the legality of the actions carried out by Celestine Omehia were not questioned or actually adjudicated on earlier today. Yes.
Great reporting. Thank you so much, Charles Operon, our correspondent from Port Harcourt. We'll keep our eyes and ears and maybe get the reaction of the man in the eyes of the storm at some point. We appreciate that. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you more stories, including some concerns about insecurity across the country. Join us again. Welcome back. The federal government or Federal Executive Council has approved the construction of 28 roads and bridges across the country and is worth over 1.2 trillion naira. The Minister of Works, Mr. Dave Umahi, said this shortly after the FEC meeting presided over by the President. He said the projects were approved by the government, having gone through the Bureau of Public Procurement and certificates of objection secured, no objection rather, secured amongst other related issues. Let's move on now to other stories still around the federal government, where it says it is committed to committing its resources to building 1 million houses as part of efforts to deflate Nigeria's headline inflation, as investment in the sector has proven to have multiplier effects on the economy. The managing director of the Federal Housing Authority, Mr. Yetunde Ojo, disclosed this in Makurdi, the Borno State capital, at a meeting with Governor Hyacinth Alia, who approved a large hectare of land with a promise to fulfill all financial obligations to the land to enable the agency hit the ground running. All right, we'll bring you details of that in our subsequent bulletin. But let's now bring you this conversation on security. We've talked about the issue of Nadeem Anjarwalla escaping from the custody of the National Security Advisor, that's that office, as well as the development across insecurity in the country. We've been joined in the program by a consultant, security consultant, Mr. Kingsley Uzoma. Mr. Uzoma, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Uzoma, we've spoken to loads of experts on this. Let's begin with the Anjarwalla issue. Two things are puzzling, but let me start with one. They seem to agree, the two people we've spoken to, that the man was able to escape custody from the NSA's office because of people, they exploited their religious sentiment and, of course, greed. Do you agree, or are there more layers to this?
There are more layers to it, and in the first place, we must admit the fact that it is a national embarrassment for Nadeem to escape out of custody from Nigeria, especially from under the custody of Office of the National Security Advisor. Okay? Beyond the sentiments of religion, it goes to tell us that as a nation, we still do not take issues of national security serious. Rather, we play politics. There is the politics angle of it. There is also the religious aspect of it. The politics angle of it is to downplay the government in power, to show that, yes, you speak more of security and seems to be having it right, but internally and the real depth of it, that is empty. That nobody is secure, because Office of the National Security Advisor coordinates security. For instance, should you have the police watching over Nadeem Anjarwalla, then you need to have police policing over the police. Does it mean that the surveillance, or the gadgets, or the investment put into at the Office of the National Security advice in terms of infrastructure, training, and what have you, just went down the drain. Just like that, we really need to look inward to re-examine ourselves again, once again.
Very alarmed at this level of alleged complicity. The office is described as the Office of the National Security Advisor, and a prime suspect whose allegation borders on financing terrorism, money laundering, tax evasion, and others, was kept in custody of that some form of a fortress, and the person escaped. Smooth operation. It was they call it an extraction, some form of an extraction. What should be done right now as far as that office is concerned?
Yes, call it an extraction, extradition, or whatever one wants to put it to be. The fact that the suspect in question has the economic power, muscle, to finance his escape, that's number one. Number two, here in our nation, he has his followers, his fellow mafians who can help, because I am sure while being at the Office of the National Security Advisor, he has access to phone. He was only restricted in terms of movement, but obviously he seems to have all the luxuries he needs while still under custody. And the issue is it that, yes, from some quarters, we are aware that he will not be kept at the Office of the National Security Advisor because there are no chalets there to house a suspect. Rather, apartments must have been rented somewhere to put him under custody and have maybe a few number of guards, either from the police and what have you, to watch over him. And you also have the freedom to pray and participate in things like that. So the question is, who are these officers guarding him day and night? Are they being changed routinely, or he just has 2 or 3 or a few dedicated to him that make him more vulnerable for us as a nation and easier for him to lobby his way through his cronies and fellow mafias who are there? They were able to do that. And there should be an emergency meeting for all the security heads to come on board, for the president to admit a national security emergency, in the sense that if that can happen from the Office of the National Security Advisor, that means nobody is secured. That means what has been happening in terms of pupils being kidnapped, like the case in Kaduna, and everybody, all the security agencies, and some of them, there is high level of complacency in that area. It seems to be patriotic, and no one seems to align with the unity of peoples in terms of national security. Rather, every opportunity given for one to head one security layer or the other is an opportunity to come and eat from the national cake. That orientation, that social malady must change.
Just as we begin to round off, what do you advise going forward in terms of the threshold for employing people into such sensitive position? I'm not necessarily talking about the office of the NSA. I'm talking about the people that walk around these offices, including everyone below that cadre.
First, we must admit that the generation of security personnel we have now, they've lost it in terms of these are people who never had the passion for the job of security. They are opportunists, okay? People who maybe after their university education and what have you, they just desire to work there, and they had the connections to be able to employ and be posted in office like Office of the National Security Advisor. They were not there by merit, rather they lobbied through somebody that knows somebody or able to pay their way out, okay? So for you to work at the Office of the National Security Advisor and other sensitive area, the state, or maybe through the DSS and other agencies that are relevant, you must have passed under serious scrutiny to be able to examine that indeed you have what it takes to be there. And over time, you change the people. You must not have one who works there more like a landlord, been there years, government after government, and they feel relaxed. Anybody can be changed at any time. Wherefore, security is compromised or some level of police. Everybody must be policed. Officers working there must be policed by another, and the other must be policed by other. By that, you can have an improved security.
Kingsley Uzoma, thank you so much for your insight. Security consultant joining us to explain and have an understanding of what happened with the NSS office as far as this escape of Najim Anjawala of Binance is concerned. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, an aspirant for the 2024 governorship election in Ondo State on the platform of the APC, Dr. Paul Akintelure, is dead. The spokesperson of the APC in the state confirmed the incident to Channels Television via a telephone conversation. The medical doctor turned politician had raised an alarm about both direct and indirect threats to his life. Dr. Paul, in 2012, ran as the deputy governorship candidate of the Action Congress of Nigeria, ACN, with former Governor Rotimi Akeredolu. Before then, he had run for Ondo South Senatorial District under the platform of the ACN. He was a Lagos-based private medical practitioner who hailed from Igbotako in the Okitipupa local government area of Ondo State. And that's it on the program. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the family. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics.